Okay.
Hi, everyone. Folks are still filtering in, and we're going to give everyone just another minute or so to filter in before Heba kicks us off with introductions and we get into the meat of the webinar today.
I see more names joining in. Recognize one. So we'll give it another minute. Maybe 12:02 would be our start time. Thank you everyone for being here on time. Okay, are we comfortable starting? Okay, wonderful. So hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Heba Saleh. I am a Senior Program Officer with the LISC Local Initiative Support Cooperation, the Charlotte office. We are a national nonprofit community development financial institution. I am joined with my colleagues from the Charlotte office, Harold Lloyd and Jordan, and also from the national office, from the Family Income and Wealth Building team. Valerie is here with us to help us in answering some questions and going through some information. This webinar is to provide information around the RFP, the request for proposal that we put out in relation to funds to partner on an FOC, a Financial Opportunity Center integration model, or model integration. We will have a brief introduction that will explain more about the model. We will go also in details about the Financial Opportunity Center evidence-based approach and network within the nation. We'll review the RFP. We will have plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. And also this call is, or this webinar is recorded, and we will post it or publish it for you to look at later or to send it to whomever you'd like. So I will hand it over to my colleague, Valerie, to take us through the first part of this webinar.
Thank you, Heba. Before we jump right into talking about the model, I just wanted to let everyone on the call know that the chat has been enabled. You are all presently on mute, but when we get to the Q&A session, you'll be able to take yourselves off of mute and speak freely at that time. So before we get started, what I was going to ask everyone to do, since the chat is enabled, if you could just put your name and your organization and your role with the organization in the chat to kind of give everyone an idea of who's on the call, that would be great. And we'll just jump right into our overview of the Financial Opportunity Center model. So the Financial Opportunity Center model is an integrated service delivery model that was developed over 2 decades ago and actually came out of something you may be familiar with called the Annie Casey Foundation Center for Working Families. And what was occurring is Annie Casey Foundation had been investing in community-based organizations who were providing employment training and getting people living wage jobs. But what they found over time is that the financial circumstances of those families, despite having the advanced training and education in order to achieve and land a living wage job, they were still living in poverty. Folks were still struggling, and there was very little economic success. And so we partnered with the Annie Casey Foundation at that time. Again, now this has been over 20 years ago. I said, we think we know what the issue is here. We need to make sure that those key employment services, including the job training and coaching and placement services, are really combined with financial capability services as well as income supports. And that over time has also then evolved to look at ecosystems that also consider the financial products, safe, affordable financial products that are available to LMI families, and additional direct financial and cash transfer programs, and then the advancement of our Bridges program. So the way this really works is we started out over 20 years ago, and we are an evidence-based best practice model that has been proven through independent evaluations. We'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. But what we found is by purposefully integrating or bundling these key services in employment, finance, and income supports, or access to public benefits, if you will, we were able to see that people were able to make real gains in areas, not only just getting the job, but also increasing their income and then working one-on-one with their financial coach to do things like increase their credit score, that helped with asset development and debt reduction, that led to overall net worth gains of LMI families in a relatively short period of time, and to continue to keep that progress on. So that's the heart of the model started with and are in these 3 core services, but those are all joined together by something we call coaching. So coaching is different than counseling. It really focuses on more asking and not telling, and having people develop their own path forward. And from there, we also, from the very beginning, had a data system in place. So when we look at what creates, or what are the key elements to create a solid financial opportunity center in communities, we're really looking at trusted community-based organizations who already naturally have an influx of LMI people coming to their organization for services, and that you're offering one of the 3 core services. And typically where we've seen the most success is if your organization is already offering some type of employment service, because we found it's easier to build in the financial capability and the income support services it is in some cases than to break into your local workforce ecosystem. That said, we had mentioned that the reason we keep doing this and keep improving upon it is because it actually works. So bundling works, and how we figured this out is we were doing our own studies, so our own research team, but we actually had an opportunity to engage the Economic Mobility Court to come in and do an independent evaluation of our work. And we were really expecting to see certain key outcomes that we would really just blow others away on. So what the study entailed was having the Financial Opportunity Center partners who are doing this integrated service delivery of all 3 core services versus just a standalone one-stop workforce where you just come in, you get your job, and you go. We were really anticipating that the FOC partners would have these, exponentially higher rates of credit score improvement and debt reduction. And what we found is we did have higher credit scores, but it wasn't statistically significant. And the area of debt reduction that we really shined is non-asset related debt reduction was much higher among the FOC partners. But what was uncovered was something even more remarkable from that study. Folks who engage in integrated services are actually twice as likely to get the job. Placements rates were higher, but not only get the job, but retain the job for 6 months or more. So we were really pleased and shocked by that. It just goes to show that the financial capability and income supports work really does underscore those employment outcomes that are key to people moving forward with their economic outlook. Over the years, again, we started out in those with those 3 core services that remain core to the program even today. But beyond integration, areas that we've really focused on and that continue to advance and excel the work and expound the outcomes of the partners of the individuals who are taking advantage of these services through our partners in the ground is making sure that we're using that coaching approach. So we make sure that the services that we are providing are not only culturally competent, but also put the client at the center of the decision making. The ethos is every person is creative, resourceful, and whole. Folks are not broken. They're not here to be fixed. Unlike counseling, we're not identifying or diagnosing some type of problem and then telling them what to do to fix it. Instead, you really go into this values exploration. And we understand and appreciate that each client is an expert in their own lives. And the coaches are there to actually help them figure out the best path forward and provide them the support and encouragement, as well as the accountability to make sure that those goals that they set for themselves are achieved. The other area that we really focus heavily on is making sure people understand credit is an asset. Credit is a critical component to build in order to reduce overall household expenses. The better your credit score is, the cheaper things like insurance and other interest rates on loans that you will get will actually be. So we understand that credit is really the backbone of building a strong financial future. And then we also, again, make sure we use data for improvement. Data is collected not just for reporting. We're heavily on reporting in our proprietary family financial tracking template housed in Salesforce for all of our partners. That is a requirement of being an FOC. But more importantly, we like to promote this as a tool that both you and your clients can use. So we've got a lot of great client-facing interventions built into our software system that the selected partner will learn about, including the ARC tool and Mowgli text features, to really help keep your clients engaged over time and help them take more control of their own financial future. But also, more importantly, it helps you in your own community identify trends that you're seeing so that maybe you can attack systemic issues or create additional financial products. It also helps you just with your basic program improvement and how you deliver your services and improving your service delivery. The other component that we focused on heavily that reaches beyond just those 3 core services is digital skilling. And digital skills are recognized as a critical component, not just for job success, but think about the influx of all of the fintech, the financial technology that's happening, all of the apps that are on our phone that are enable us to readily manage our money better. Also think about the fact that most public benefits have now gone to an online or automatic deposit type environment where everything is becoming virtual. So we really see digital skills as something that is embedded in all areas of the work as well. So that is a quick overview of some core components, just to give you an idea of what we're looking for and what you as a partner are actually endeavoring to help achieve in your community if you decide to move forward with an application for the RFP under this opportunity and are selected as a partner. I'm going to turn it back over to Heba now to dig deep into the actual RFP.
Thank you so much, Valerie. So one thing that I want to explain is that we are not reinventing the wheel. This RFP is merely to identify and partner with an existing workforce development organization or job placement or skill building organization that is either already providing financial coaching or able to accommodate building its capacity to be able to do so, in addition to the income support. So in a nutshell, a partner who is willing to adapt this evidence-based model so we can achieve the outputs and the impact that is significant in our communities. Going back to the RFP, we have funding generously provided by one of our partners from Vanguard, and it is enough for 2 years. In the each year is going to be up to $150,000 to help build the capacity of the partner organization that will be selected as a result of reviewing and scoring the applications submitted for this RFP. It's really straightforward, more or less, the requirements. The advantages is that the new partner is going to join a network of 120, almost more than 120 FOCs around the nation. There is an abundance of resources to help support the partner organization. In addition to the funds, in addition to getting access, free access to the CRM system that is the family financial tracking system or Salesforce platform that will provide up to 5 licenses to the partner organizations. There's going to be an opportunity, like I mentioned, for free training, capacity building, certificate, also program that results into certificates for coaching. The onboarding process includes training of the staff assigned to provide the bundle services. The grant disbursement will depend on performance, more or less, but we anticipate that at least for the first year, it's going to be on a quarterly basis. It is not reimbursement based. It's a grant that would be given to you to utilize according to the agreed upon budget and after grant execution. So there isn't any invoices that we were going to request to document the spending of this grant. Like I mentioned that yes, thank you, Valerie. Like I mentioned that the performance-based principle or parameter is pretty much what is expected to be achieved typically through participating in the FOC model. How many participants placed in jobs? These are just examples. What is the combined, the baseline combined financial assessment completed? How many participants have increased their credit score? How many participants were able to save more money, and so on and so forth. So these are just some of the parameters that we want to see improving, through the grant period within those 2 years. We can move to the next slide. So the first year, it all depends on a lot of things, but our estimation is that best case scenario will be able to start this grant at the 1st of September, and we'll run the first year. The grant term is going to be 12 months, and the second year is also going to kick off accordingly. So the timeline showing in front of you documents some of the benchmarks or the milestones that we have for this RFP. We've already issued it on the 6th. We're having this webinar right now on the 14th. We've given what I hope is enough time to research and put together the application and submit it no later than July 12th at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We had situations in the past where we got applications at 5:05 and we weren't able to move forward with looking at those applications because they had passed the deadline. So I just want to emphasize that applications need to be submitted no later than 5 p.m. Eastern time on July the 12th. We will take a little bit of time to review the applications. We have a scoring system that is already shared, in the RFP document. And when we are done with the review and scoring, we will start conducting site visits. We will contact the finalist to coordinate that. We recommend that if you feel that you've submitted a good application, that you go ahead and block your calendar on August the 5th and 6th. We will choose one day, of course, but it would be a good idea just to hold some space in your calendar for the potential of being visited as part of the review and selection process for this RFP. And then after that, things kick off rapidly. We anticipate that the grant contract will be executed with the start date, like we mentioned, in September, 1st of September this year, 2024. As indicated in the RFP document, the application should be submitted to myself. My email is listed here, hsalih@lisc.org. Copy my ED, Ralphine Caldwell, would be a good idea. And make sure that you submit the application with all the attachment that you require. If the attachments are too big, to be included in the email, you can definitely share a link to a third platform like Dropbox or whatever drive that we can access. Make sure that it's open for us to access it. We can move to the next one. So these are the eligibility and minimum qualification. These are not necessarily anything unique to what we require as LISC in partnering with another organization. It is typical, very standard requirements that has elements to do with the capacity of the organization. The status has to be a nonprofit. It has to be in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. The organization needs to have at least enough controls to manage and process, these funds, to be able to report on a timely manner, to have the stability and staff commitment and leadership commitment to take on this model of service delivery. We look at these elements because it's a long-term partnership that we have. Yes, this RFP says 2 years, but typically Valerie may give us a little bit of an idea around how long does it our partners continue to remain in our network actively and giving information and receiving support and varying levels of funding. But it's a long-term commitment and partnership that we look forward to. That's why we are requiring these elements as part of this selection process, because we are going to be in it for the long run. Valerie, do you know how long does it? I've known that for example, for the Virginia office, it's been forever, like since they got set up in the partnership until today, which is like more than 10 years ago. They're still in the network. And yeah,
we have partners who've been in the network for the full 20 years. So the idea is we want this, if this is truly a part of your core services, you'll see that this isn't really necessarily something brand new. As Heba said, it's not like you're starting from scratch. You should already be doing some element of this work. We're just looking at helping you figure out a new way of doing business to really increase your client outcomes over time. And additionally, let's be clear that the reason that this funding agreement is for a potential of 2 years is because that's the amount of funding that has been secured thus far. Just know that LISC is a partner in this and that we will help secure additional funding moving forward. We work very closely with our funding partners and they also help inform our innovations. So over time, you'll see that your program will evolve and will grow, and we'll be here to help support it. That said, because this is a new way of doing business, we also help you figure out how you can reallocate existing resources that you're using to accomplish outcomes related to this work, to repurpose that to help support staff who are operating under this new business model.
Thank you, Valerie. So like we mentioned, this is for the long run. These requirements are really just the baseline of what we look for in a viable partner. The audits is something that we would appreciate, but we're willing to work with you around some things if your audits are not up to date or, reflective of, the year, depending on your physical year, actually. So I think everything is clear here, and we will have some room for questions later on. The ineligible criteria is, again, that this funding is restricted to costs related to setting up and adapting the FOC model. It does cover the FOC related staff and operational cost. So it's really funding that is supposed to be given to our partner to see them succeed in implementing this model. We can move to the next slide. Alrighty. So the proposal guidelines, like I said, we have scores and we have points that we will be judging or evaluating the application inputs or submitted applications on it. The program narrative will be scored against 95 points. The budget is 5 points. The required attachment is something that we also would appreciate to have. But again, if something needs to be updated or still under review, we will work with you on getting it later on. So funding, the funding request is for that amount for the first year of the grant 2024 and 2025. We would what you would request in your proposal would be for those two-year grants. Valerie, would you go through this really quick on my behalf? I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is the funding request is just to you'll have under your funding request, the first part of the application, you'll be asked to provide not just the amount that you're requesting for the grant year, which the guidelines are, you'll be requesting between we anticipate you'll be requesting between 120 up to 150,000. And that in addition to that, not only are we looking at the amount of funding that you're requesting, but thinking about your existing program that is related to the FOC core services. For example, if you have workforce programming, give an idea of what the total program budget for your upcoming requested year is for that, and how this LISC funding can complement it. So there are really three things we're looking for in the funding request portion of the RFP. Is we're looking for you to give us an idea of what is your overall agency budget as a whole, what is your program budget for the program that you particularly think that you're going to integrate the FOC services in, and then the portion of that request is the actual amount that you're going to be requesting from
Thank you,
us.
Valerie. Yeah, thank you. And this will help us pretty much gauge on the long run the amount of funding that you might need and how much you are allocating for this program and the general capacity and ability of the organization to carry out its services. The program location, like we mentioned, should be a program located in Mecklenburg County, serving Charlotte residents. We will appoint additional, scores or points to entities serving individuals living in West End, because West Charlotte is our targeted neighborhood as a LISC office for community development. So to clarify further, we don't require the partner or the submitting application entity to be located physically in historic West End. Rather, we would prefer and would appreciate if there's an influx of client flow from the historic West End or west of Charlotte into the entity if it's located in Uptown or somewhere else. So that's the additional point that would be granted if available. If not, then all that we ask is that you are within the parameters of Charlotte City. The targeted population, and again, this is very typical. We generally serve low-income individuals, unemployed, employed. These are the populations that we serve. These are the groups of the community that we focus on building the capacity and developing skills in so they can move forward in the economic ladder. So the more that you can tell us about the population you serve, the better. We will get an understanding of, you know, who are you most connected with and how we can tailor the program during the integration phase to meet the existing client flow. And if you're missing anybody from that client flow, we will help you attract or develop some strategies to communicate and integrate these services in them as well, into those communities. The program description, so we would like to understand what is it that you're already doing? What is your standard like procedures and services that you are running? So a description of that is really appreciated. List everything about any type of trainings that you provide that is skill-based, that generates or has a certificate associated with it. If you're in relation to the workforce development, so job training or skill-based training or job readiness, courses, if there's any certification, if you have any process of referral for job placement, like with a staffing agency, and if you follow any of those, individuals later on, we would love to understand that. If you have a financial capacity building or financial literacy program running, what are the topics that you cover? How do you cover them? How long is that? What is the goals and what is the mode of delivery that you have already in place? Again, if you do any collaborative work with income support, with any government entity, with any nonprofit, if you have any additional services that relates to child watch, for example, care for your clients while they undergo these trainings or these coaching sessions or counseling. However, if you refer to other social determinants of health, for example, food insecurity, you refer clients for affordable housing, vouchers, any of those would give us any detailed information, would give us a good idea about your like your capacity, and that would be helpful for us to evaluate your existing operation and how we can integrate the bundle services into it. Your program outcome, again, related to what your existing operation is like and what services are you providing. You can definitely help us by answering these questions, whether you are, do you report duplicated or unduplicated clients numbers? How are you measuring some of the parameters and some of the outcomes that you expect to have? If you have any qualitative ways also of collecting information, we would love to have that. So this is pretty much a part about what is your existing mode or tools for outcome measurement, tracking, and evaluation. And if that also connects to any program modification that you have already set, please let us know. Again, if you provide anything that responds to the cultural and social characteristics of your existing targeted population, let us know. The closest example that I can think about is, child care for single moms or moms who don't have somebody to care for their children, whether from an affordability point of view and actual presence. So if you provide child watch, child care for, some of the female or even male parents in your program, let us know. Anything that you are providing extra to overcome barriers to work or skill development, let us know. That will help a lot, again, in evaluating your capacity. If you provide interpretation or translation services to overcome the language barrier, if you're keen on hiring or recruiting staff that are bilingual, this is something also that we would like to know. Yes, we can.
I would just, before we leave this
go
one,
ahead.
I just wanted to jump in here and really emphasize, this relates a lot back to, we talked about the coaching-based model. So majority of the FOC services are really carried out in a coaching-based model. And the more culturally competent your organization is, the more trust you're able to build with your constituency, which will make your coaching more successful. That'll increase client retention so you can work with them over the long term and really help foster that coach-client relationship.
Thank you, Valerie. So this is, again, very typical information that we gather about the partner that we will end up selecting. So your mission and vision, history, your organizational structure, your leadership, your board of director, description. If you have, there's a list of attachment that also feeds into complements this picture, but this part. But if you take the time to explain in details all of this information that we request, we would appreciate it as well.
I think the one thing that people might be a little bit worried about is that we're asking for a board resolution. We're asking for acknowledgement from your board of directors that they understand that you're undertaking this endeavor and that they're supportive of it. So what the Charlotte office has done, understanding that boards meet at different times, this may not fit within your schedule. In the event that you're not able to get that board buy-in in time and get that resolution, they're asking for a letter of commitment from your executive director that says, yes, this is on our radar. We're going to get this board approval and everything can be in place before an award is announced, because it's very important for the long-term success. And just to give a little bit of clarity, it's really important for the long-term success that you have complete organizational buy-in. And oftentimes, we like to start and think about, do we have staff buy-in? Because they're going to be the direct service. They're going to be the contact with the coaches. But if you don't have that additional leadership level buy-in that includes your board, it's going to make it harder for you to be successful with the implementation of this model long-term.
Thank you so much, Valerie. I cannot emphasize that even more. But to your end as well, the commitment has to be 100%. There is decisions in the long run that has to do with adapting the CRM. We don't want a case where the CRM is shunned and applied to only part of your population that you serve because you already have an existing one, or that commitment of staffing and building their capacity and retaining them and finding them, a comfortable place where they can provide these services would be in isolation from the rest of your organizational performance or, talent. So long-term commitment is more or less a must. And this is, like I mentioned, it's not, even though the RFP is like for 2 years, but our partners stay with us in the network for way longer than that. So we definitely want, like Valerie mentioned, a full buy-in and commitment from a leadership point of view into taking this endeavor into account. The staff qualification, we would love to know, who do you have? Not judging, again, just evaluating where are they, what is the next step to take them if needed in the training and capacity building to be able to deliver the coaching-based bundle services. So we'd appreciate if you describe who do you have, their experience, their qualification, any certification that they have, as well, how long they've been with you, if they are training of trainers and so on and so forth. So the more that you tell us in 400 word limits about this, the better for us.
I would just also like to note that a lot of you may be looking to hire additional staff to really make this successful. So in that instance, in addition to the existing staff that you have that you see transitioning in order to help make this model successful in your organization, if you have room and time, talk about the qualifications and experience and what you would be looking for in terms of characteristics of an individual that you would look to fill any open role that you would envision adding to your staff.
Thank you, Valerie. So we're all for collaboration. One hand can't clap. Not yet, though. Advancement and everything is amazing, but we definitely appreciate a collaborative mindset and describing how have you done that in the past? Who are your existing partners? We would like to see letters of commitment, memorandum of understanding with any additional partners that you refer to. If you don't provide, for example, in-house financial support services and you refer to other entities, we would like to know who they are for food security, for income support, utility support, all of those additional services. We would like to know who are your partners that are helping you carry this work. And again, this will give us a better understanding of how anchored you are into the general or bigger picture of supporters or service providers, sorry, within Charlotte, and how we can help you maintain that or even improve it, what can be brought in-house given the need and be more cost effective, you know, in a way that is more cost effective for the organization. We would like to know your program, if applicable, like I mentioned, if you provide any training that is, you know, provide certification or license, please explain that in the section related to it in the RFP response.
I would also just encourage folks that maybe your program doesn't have a special accreditation by an organization that would come in and do these type of quality reviews. That's fine. It's not a requirement, as Heba mentioned, it's if applicable. But that doesn't mean you need to skip over this space, because think about any additional efforts that your organization undertakes in order to ensure program quality that might not rise to that level of being an accredited or an affiliate of a national recognized certification or license. Just keep that in mind as you're.
Yes, Valerie. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but I would also encourage you as a response, if you don't have any certification or licensing program, in the session that says describe any additional efforts, let us know if you have identified some programs and funding, for example, was a barrier, or relation or connection or starting. Would like to know that, like if you pursued something and it hit like a wall, or you weren't able to attain it for whatever reason, we would like to know that. So be mindful to mention that. The program budget, again, we would like to see, you know, what an eligible use is. We would like to see in your response how are you going to distribute the amount of money, the $150,000 per year, against salaries and fringes and program delivery or related activities, and operation, and any you know, new staff, like if you, like Valerie mentioned, if you have the plans to hire new employees, let us know how is that going to affect the budget, and how much are you going to need for it. So like we mentioned, just assume a 12-month budget. We'll take it, you know, 1 year at a time. We definitely have the flexibility to work around the budget items, given any lesson learned that we encounter or come up against in the first year. It doesn't have to be identical the second year. We can definitely work on making things reasonable and comfortable for you. But I think the main idea is to support your staff to be able to carry this work. Really, that's the expectation, that your budget would allocate enough to cover, if not a full-time staff salary, half maybe, with additional funding, or maybe half for two. However you see that additional resources or fundings are going to be put towards equipment maybe and whatnot, but it's mainly for capacity building for the staff to be able to carry this work. Valerie, anything that you want to add? No? Okay.
I would like to point out that in my role, I work with multiple offices. I really think Charlotte has done a really good job laying out for you what to anticipate in developing a program budget. And these additional guidelines here are extremely helpful, and something that maybe you wouldn't know endeavoring on this in your first year, that there will be these additional related costs regarding travel or regarding credit pull. So I think that the team did a really good job. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Charlotte team for this great budget guidance and development.
This is a list of the required attachments that we would need to have with the application that answers all of those categories that we mentioned. So a cover sheet that lists your organization, and there's an example of it in the RFP, a cover sheet that has specific information about, who's the executive director, the number of board of directors, their ethnicities, your status, some of the information that we need to validate the nonprofit from kind of like a registration legal point of view, if that makes sense. Our legal department uses that information to input in the system and generate a contract. The audits, most recent audit, we prefer 2 years, but like I mentioned, if your audits are for the most recent years, a year is not available or not ready yet, we are willing to work with a balance sheet that includes like your basic cash flow, your liabilities, and we'll work with you on figuring out the ratios for your financial capacity. If you receive government funding above a certain limit that you will have an A133 audit, we would like to see that if available or if applicable. Again, copy of a management letter if applicable, and like Valerie mentioned, we would like a letter, indicating that your leadership is committed to undertaking this model and adapting the bundle services, and also letters of support or memorandum, MOUs, memorandum of understanding or agreement with any of your affiliated partner would also help. Awesome. So we have time now for Q&As.
We do have a
And
question already in the chat from Kenneth Smith. The first question is the RFP on your website?
it is not. It is on our LinkedIn page, but thank you for that. I'll make a note to have that published, the RFP published on our website as soon as possible. So we'll do that. We sent an invitation to the majority of our existing providers. And we asked that folks circulate the RFP to anybody who might be interested as well. But Kenneth, we will definitely post it on our website very soon.
And the second question, and Kenneth, everyone should be able to take themselves off of mute, unmute themselves and speak at any time. So the second question is do we have to use your software? And I wanted to get a little clarification on that, meaning our data tracking software, the LISC Salesforce instance. Is that the question, Kenneth?
Yeah, and if I can just expand on that. So is it the system that would be required to be used in the kind of day-to-day operation, or is it just a tool that you need to feed the reporting data into? So if I'm using my system on a day-to-day basis, because it kind of pulls all my programs into one place, but then I can export a report, the tracking points that you want into your system is what I'm really trying to get at.
Yeah, at this point, it is a system that needs to be used on a day-to-day basis because there isn't a clear export function and it doesn't align properly with most programs. I'm assuming you have like a specialized in-house software that you've developed.
Yeah, our system can do API calls to Salesforce. We do that with other platforms. So we could do an API call. And maybe that's too much information right now, but I was just asking the question, what data are you looking to have reported? Because if it's like a monthly report, then that's an API call where we can just pull the results and just pull it into your system. But if you're saying, no, we want you to use this system, that is different because
we would need you to use the system because our system is really a client management and really a case management system that tracks not just the key outcomes across the 3 areas of income supports, financial services, and employment services, but also tracks key service points and service delivery aspects, including like how long you met with, the method of meeting. Those types of data points are captured in our system. So it is a requirement that you utilize LISC Salesforce database. It is a comprehensive database, again, that captures multiple different data points. across those 3 key areas. So that
And
is a
Thank
requirement.
you.
if I may
Thank
add
you,
as
ma'am.
well, you're welcome, Kenneth. So part of joining or marrying into the FOC model is, like I mentioned, is going to be joining a network of 120 partner organization across the nation. We have an annual conference that our potential future partner will be attending and also benefiting from. The CRM, the Salesforce platform, the client management system is the baseline of communicating across the 120 partner, organizations in the nation. So when coaches from, Chicago, financial opportunity coaches from Chicago talk about like, effort, correct me, give me one term from the Salesforce, Valerie, but if when they use one categories or touch point of measurement from the Salesforce, the financial opportunity center coach from Charlotte should know exactly what the other, what does that mean? So it creates a baseline and a hub for communication and learning and tracking. It also serves to help us understand how are you delivering the services, what are the gaps, and it helps us communicate areas of need where we can advocate and get more funding and support for you. So it bringing this to Charlotte is a wonderful opportunity. And it's part of the buy-in into this model and the long-term relationship, if that makes sense.
A fun fact, the selected partner will enter into what we call an FOC site service agreement, which is a contract between LISC and your organization. It sets out parameters for the data use. This is all how a majority of the contract that makes you an official financial opportunity center and you can use the brand is actually linked to our Salesforce system and the use of our Salesforce system. So in this instance, you, the organization, you own the data, you have access to client level information. LISC is program officers and program staff. We only have access to information that is aggregate. So we can look at aggregate outcomes. We don't see any individual client level outcomes, but we have customized templates. I think the key component and the reason why is because the way that our family financial tracking template works is, in addition to tracking sort of those key service entry, service contact points that allow you as a manager to really look at where your staff may be excelling or dig deeper if clients aren't meeting outcomes. We also link into all of our primary and major outcomes are linked to these key combined financial assessments. So there are comprehensive assessments in the area of what we call a balance sheet, which is your net worth statement, your budget, your monthly budget, your credit assessment, which includes your credit report and your score. And then we have a financial health assessment, which is a best practice from CBA that really is a qualitative measure of how someone is feeling about their own financial health, in addition to an action plan or the goals. So those will change over time, and your baselines, after you complete a baseline assessment, any subsequent assessment that's entered into the system is how that those gains are tracked and calculated. So we provide, there's another question I wanted to get to from Bree that keeping in the Salesforce conversation. So our program currently uses Salesforce. If your program currently uses Salesforce, would you need to build in funding for the integration, or is it a simple template to integrate within your existing Salesforce? This will be a separate instance. This is a separate, Salesforce isn't like one big thing. It's just the housing platform. So our template will not be integrated into your template necessarily, but you do not need to put anything in your budget around Salesforce. One of the things that we at LISC do is we make sure we provide you a minimum of 5 free licenses. You can purchase additional licenses beyond those first five free licenses, but we also have a comprehensive self-paced training in our online learning management system for folks to get caught up to speed into how to effectively use our template. And then in addition to that, we host monthly Salesforce support calls with our staff who at least twice a month, 1 hour twice a month, they're there and you can log on and ask any question or troubleshoot any problem that you have with it. You also have your local team who can also help you troubleshoot issues with the Salesforce template as well. Let's see.
Yeah.
Is
Thank
the
you,
plan
Bree.
goal to have
Mhm.
multiple FOCs, and if approximately how many? Tiffany, I will tell you that is always the planning goal in every market. It absolutely is. But at this point, we're starting out small. We're starting out with the one that we have funding for that can help get it right and hopefully help onboard additional sites locally as well. So long term, absolutely, Tiffany. Currently, we're starting with the one. Tracy, you have your hand. You should be able to take yourself off mute.
I'm off mute. Hi there. Thank you for this webinar. It's very helpful. I was curious back on the data component. I'm just curious because if it's in Salesforce, I know you mentioned that we own the data, but technically if we put this data in Salesforce, but we don't own the server, I mean, is it like whose account on Salesforce is the data going into? Like, how would we have that raw data access?
It's going into the LISC master account.
Okay,
So
all right.
if there is something specific that you need to pull that isn't available through either custom reports that you would be able to set up on your own, or through just an overall, we have something we call the FFT report that is just, it covers a lot of different things, but then you will be able to go in and create specific custom reports. If there's still something that you're not receiving or don't want, and you want that raw data, then you will put you in contact with our data manager, our senior program officer, who's in charge of data for the entire network. Her name is Carolina, and Carolina will help you extrapolate and get you what you need.
Okay, all right, yeah, because I was just trying to think in terms of not creating a situation where we have to capture our own data in our own system, but then also turn around and put the data in your system. And so right now we're not talking about, it didn't sound like we're talking about integration per se. You basically have a platform in which the data needs to go. And if Core needs to keep their own data also, they have to do it, just kind of duplicate the work.
Yeah,
okay.
And that's, that is something that that may be the one hindrance for your organization, but we have multiple partners who are successful at managing multiple databases. And as being part of this national peer learning network, you'll be connected with them to learn some of the techniques and tools that they've been able to implement. And I think once you see the system and see how comprehensive it is, we've had people that had their own data system that maybe was newer and wasn't something that was really ingrained, but they've opted to go ahead and take what we're giving them because it gives them everything that they need. And they're also not having to have the cost burden of that in-house data expert and the cost associated with continuing that platform.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's the point that I wanted to highlight, that you do have the autonomy of either keeping your existing data collection method, but a good amount of partners have opted to, end up using Salesforce, the CRM that we provide, because of the advantages and because it's robust and because it's, you're not having to pay for the, membership or account, and the development is being developed continuously, yes, through
I'm familiar with the expense of Salesforce, so that's certainly not a cheap system by any means. And so I was just thinking in terms, like in our organization, and I don't want to monopolize, I just want to say that like we have basically 3 different programs that would feed into this. Each program has all of the data components. There's the data components that you're going to want to collect, plus the additional data components that we collect for other purposes. So I guess where I was definitely not a deal breaker if we'd have to do 2 systems, but it sounds like we could potentially collect all of our data in Salesforce above and beyond what the specific data components you want, or no? Okay, all right,
I wish, but no.
Okay.
That comes with an additional customization. If we did that across 130 different partners, it would be a little bit of a nightmare.
Okay.
But to your point, we do know that there are other, for example, some of our partners in the system, in the network, are also certified HUD housing counselor. Well, HUD's had Counselor Max for years. They're not going to go away from Counselor Max. So it's
Right.
a matter of looking at like how we manage that. So this is a great point to even think about, is there going to be an extra cost to your organization for data management? So consider that as you're developing your
Certainly.
proposal and your budget as well.
And not a deal breaker at all, but just definitely something to be aware of going.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, thank you for your time.
I know we have 2 more minutes on this call. Anybody has any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Robin. Just a quick question about the model itself. Is this a drawdown or is it a reimbursement type of model in terms of funding? I might have missed that early on, but just wondering about that.
It's a disbursement. It's not a reimbursement. It's a disbursement on a quarterly basis. Direct, like disbursement into your bank account. There's not any invoices or backup documentation there's a financial expense report that we require to just make sure that the spending is going according to plan, that you're spending the money. But yeah, to answer your question, it's not a reimbursement. It's a direct deposit disbursements.
Typically, and this is the way that LISC runs our financial operations, because this, the partner funder in this endeavor is actually providing private funds, not public funds. We don't have to do reimbursement based, and typically the way it works, and this will be up to the team to get this in place and get everything okay in terms of their local finance, but at LISC, because of the private funding, we're able to, for example, upon contract execution, if this is going to be quarterly disbursements, as soon as you execute the contract, you get the first quarter disbursement. And so long as you're making progress towards your goals, you can guarantee that your next disbursement will come at the start of the second quarter. So you're not even like you're getting a little bit of an advance to start implementing and doing the work, and that continues on as long as progress is met towards the goals.
I think somebody else had a question.
I did have one. This is Tracy. I did have one other question. I know we're at 3, but if nobody else had anything, just wanted to make sure everyone else had the chance to ask their questions first. Okay. You had mentioned, so I know we're talking about this is a 2-year grant, and so it's seed funding basically to get this off the ground and implemented. And then you said that you have long-term partnerships. You gave the example of somebody's been with you for 20 years and that you help ongoing, like you would help obtain funding to continue. I just was hoping you could elaborate a little more about what help looks like. Because after 2 years, because honestly, as a nonprofit, we see that time and time again. We get funding, we've got something going, and then that ends, and then you're scrounging to find additional funding, or the program has to dissolve. So what does that look like after 2 years?
So I'll answer from like a national view, and then I'll let the Charlotte team, fill in. So we actually fundraise at multiple levels. This is a local investment that your local Charlotte LISC office was able to get. We also fundraise at the national level, and we're able sometimes to give money to local markets to help support partners. We view our financial opportunity center operators as we're really partners in this work together. I know you're probably used to a funder-fundee type relationship, or somebody's holding somebody accountable, and if it doesn't work, then it's on you, the provider. That is not the case here. Like our success is mutual. Our ability to empower people in communities and advance communities and move people out of poverty into prosperity, to connect them with economic opportunity, to combat racial wealth inequity, all of that is dependent on you, the partner. So we really view our FOC operators as partners in this. And to your point about starting a program, then there's no funding, it goes. Again, this shouldn't be something that you're not doing in some way anyway. So we're talking about it being a way of, you know, doing better and increasing your outcomes, which will naturally make it not just you, as we help you as the provider find and apply for grant opportunities that may be unique to you and your organization, and support with the data and the outcomes. We will help you do that. At the same time, we're also looking to how we can collect money then to filter down through to you as well. So it's really a multi-pronged approach. And the different organizations, so for example, if you're a community action agency, you're the only game in town that can access community service block grant money. So if you're we have community action agencies who are FOC operators. So what we've done with them is to look at how not only can they reallocate and look at how they're doing their programming and their staffing in this integrated service delivery fashion to increase their outcomes, but how can they ask for additional CSBG money based on the increase and improvement to their outcomes? And similarly with other different types of fundings as well.
And I'll just add really quickly to Valerie's point, it looks different in other markets. In each market, it looks different. But the thing that I love about the different, you know, manifestations of the FOC model is that it keeps growing in places where the commitment is real. And we do, like Valerie mentioned, we partner for success and we fund like we want our partner to succeed. It grows. So in the areas where workforce development has been, you know, the main focus, in addition to other categories, Bridges to Opportunities was the next phase of, after anchoring the model, the host organization has been able to be a hub for training and certified, you know, programs meeting the job demand of the given, you know, market or location. In other markets where, for example, financial literacy and health has been more of the anchor, they became, the partner FOC became more focused on producing and supporting entrepreneurs, and they became, you know, the second phase after a couple of years have been that they are more focused on being a business development organization. So it looks like the more commitment and the more growth that we have, we'll look at different, you know, format of where it's going, and we help tailor the support into getting the funding that meets that specific growth pattern. And like Valerie mentioned, we have a national sources of funding. We'll have our locally raised funding. Depending on how our partner is growing, is going to be an attraction for banks versus, like, it's going to depend, right? Who would be interested in maintaining and sustaining and growing that arm or that growth that you have specific to you. I hope that answers a little bit of your questions.
Very thoroughly. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think we're in a good place. Thank you so much I hope that we are in a good place as well. Thank you all for attending this information webinar. Thank you for my colleagues. We will make sure to have the RFP published on our website. We'll also make sure to have this recording available for you to look at on the website as well. Thank you and good luck to everybody. Bye-bye.
But thanks, Valerie. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, team. Appreciate it.